So I just wanted to go over just some kind of facts about decimals, percents, the numbers 0 and 1. Sometimes these can be confusing. So to convert a fraction to a decimal. So this is 1 divided by 4. That's what that means. So you can use your calculator to do the division. And I don't think this has been showing up awesome, but maybe you can see it a little bit. So you just do 1 divided by 4. And we get 0.25. So it's kind of nice to do the leading 0, so 0.25, just so that folks who see it know that that's actually intended to be a decimal, because otherwise why would you put the 0? You could divide longhand if you wanted. Maybe you just know what it is. Now, if you're starting with a fraction of, an integer over an integer, this decimal will always, this is called terminate, right? It's just 0.25. It's not like 0.25, right, 349 that we stopped writing. It's 0.25 and that's it. So it terminates. Or, for instance, if you had the number 1/3, right, 1/3 repeats. So 1/3, if you make that a decimal, what you get is those 3's that keep going on forever, right? And we indicate that by putting the bar over the top. Okay. To go between a decimal and a fraction, for instance, 0.55. So this is the same thing as 55, and then your places. So this is tenths and 100ths. So I have 55 100ths. 55 over 100. And then you could reduce that if you wanted, since 5 goes into both 55 and into 100. That would be 11 over 20. Okay. To convert a decimal into a percent. So percent means per 100. So it's like you want to make it like how many 100ths do you have? So 0.27, to go from decimal to percent, we swoop 2 to the right and add the percent symbol. So it's almost like we're multiplying by, 100%. So we're going to get 27%. So 100% is really the same thing as 1. So when we multiply by 1, right, it doesn't change our value. So if I do 0.27 times 100%, this 100 is what moves my decimal place to, and then I add my percent symbol, right? So 0.27 is 27%. And then to go the other way, so if I have 60% and I want to make it a decimal, because we always convert percents into their decimal version in calculations. So 60%. So if you've seen the video on unit analysis, we could actually do that here. We would multiply our 60% times 1 over 100% so that I can cancel my percent symbols, and that leaves me with 60 over 100, or 6/10, which as a decimal is 0.6. Okay. Now, the easier way, now that you understand why we can do it, 60% to get to a decimal, you take your pencil, put it where the decimal currently lives here at after the 0, and I swoop 2 to the left. 1, 2 gives me that 0.6. Okay, to add two fractions, you want to line up those decimals. So, and probably you're going to use your calculator, which is fine, right? But 1.091, let's just pretend like we want to practice. So the 1 comes down, right? I didn't have anything there. 5 and 9 is 14. 8 decimal gets lined up, and then your 6. Okay. To multiply two decimals, again, probably going to use your calculator. Again, totally fine. But if we didn't, if we just did, so we can kind of ignore all of the decimals, and you just do 7.25 times 2. I didn't mean that. I meant 725. I said ignore the decimals, didn't I? You're right. 725 times 2, so 10, 5, 14. But now I have to go in and add in all of those decimals that I had. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0.1450. I'll put the leading 0 on. Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, I'll show you mathematically why that is. So 7.25, this is the same thing as 725 over 100. Here's 2 100ths. So the 2 times 725, that was here. So 1450. 100 times 100. 1 0 0 0 0. So those 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros on the bottom were my 4 swoops to the left. Okay, properties of 0. So 0 plus a number doesn't change it. Right? Called the additive identity, in case you're curious. 8 minus 0 doesn't change it, right? So you can subtract 0 from anything and it doesn't change the number. But if you do 0 minus 8, right, that's negative 8. If you multiply by 0, anything times 0 is 0. So 0 times 8 is 0. 0 divided by 8, this is also 0. However, 8 divided by 0 is undefined. We cannot divide by 0. Okay. So properties of 1. So 1 is called the multiplicative identity, which means we can multiply by 1 and not change it. So 1 times 4 is 4. 4 divided by 1, also 4. So these two are equivalent. So sometimes in calculations, if we have the whole number 4, but the rest of the stuff we have is fractions, we can change 4 into 4 over 1 just to make things easier. And then again, because the multiplicative identity, if I multiply 4 times its reciprocal, so 4 over 1 times 1 over 4, that is 1 as well.